I assume that when Zoom actually kind of logs in, I don't need to ask people if you can hear me, because guess what? 99 times out of 100, you can hear me fine. And guess what? If you can't hear me, you'll probably mention it. Getting pretty solid with the mute button. So, I mean, personally, I feel it was a heavy start, and it's getting into a rhythm, and I don't feel like excessively, but that just might be personal opinion.
So we're going to talk about, I suppose, what everyone's talking about at the moment, a little bit around our experiences of moving to fully remote. And in actual fact, as a company, because we've always been distributed, it's always been a prerequisite for anyone anywhere in the world to be able to access anything they need to do their job remotely. So, and probably, I'd say probably over half of the people that work at ScreenCloud spend at least some of their time working from home. So for us, practically, allowing people to work from home was pretty straightforward, actually. I mean, there were a few things that we needed to do, but compared to some people, it was really, really easy. It was just like, okay, guys, you're working from home now. If you need anything from the office, make sure you grab it. Some people grab some chairs, I think, in Bangkok. Some people grab some screens and things like that. But really, from a practical point of view, it was very, very simple. But what's emerged, I think, and this isn't just within ScreenCloud, but from what I'm seeing in social media, is it's an amplification of some of the challenges that happen as the world has taken a sudden large step towards working remotely, and it's more around the behaviours, and that's kind of, certainly from my point of view, I'm seeing people kind of on Twitter and things saying that their productivity has actually gone down. Partly, I think, because people are stressed, obviously, but partly because overwhelming amount of content that's towards them. Because what happens when you have Slack, Zoom, and other kind of communication channels is it just makes it really, really easy for everybody to put all of their thoughts, ideas straight into these channels. And then if you're on the receiving end of that, it can become quite overwhelming. So yeah, that was my kind of introduction to this. But I think we've had a little bit more experience of this, but I think it's definitely something that sort of seems to be emerging. How do we make sense of all this kind of noise of communication and put it into something?
See, I think, I don't know if you've noticed this, I think it's died down. I think it went in pretty heavy. Like,
you think it's a bit of a novelty to start with, and everyone is getting used to it now a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first couple of weeks it was never ending. My phone was constantly bleeping with notifications and stuff. And honestly, I think it's chilled out a bit now. I don't know if that's just us. Maybe anyone else is feeling that. But I think I've got into a new flow with it. But to be honest, I feel quite all right with it generally. I think one of the themes I've been seeing from talking to people and just what people have been posting is that people have learned to trust each other more, that they're doing what they said they'd do, and just sort of letting them get on with it and then come back to them when they need to, rather than sort of, so I think it's about getting into a flow and a rhythm. I'm seeing quite efficient, in our product teams, quite efficient calls where we're doing short calls. Everyone's keeping, like, not waffling on too long and keeping their bit nice and clipped, moving around the room. And then we're doing these quick little recordings at the end. Just listen to one just before coming on the podcast where the product team on Signal, the work from home solution we've built, they gave a 1:40 update where 3 developers and a designer each walked through what they've been working on, what they're working on next, and it was really good. It was really digestible, and it was recorded and stuck into Slack, and that basically condensed what I believe was a half-hour stand-up sort of effectively call into 1:40. I now feel fully up to date. I didn't even feel the need to write anything in Slack to say that I'd done it. I just gave an emoji reaction, thumbs up, so showing that I've read it, I've listened to it, but that won't interrupt them. And if they're interested to know who has, then we'll see that. And I think we're falling in, like, I've stopped saying, or I'm trying to stop saying, can you hear me? Or can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Like, shit's pretty reliable, right? Like, I assume that when Zoom actually kind of logs in, I don't need to ask people if you can hear me, because guess what? 99 times out of 100, you can hear me fine. And guess what? If you can't hear me, you'll probably mention it. Getting pretty solid with the mute button. So, I mean, personally, I feel it was a heavy start, and it's getting into a rhythm, and I don't feel like excessively, but that just might be personal opinion. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I think it probably is a question of, as more people get used to the cadence of it, they start to modify their behavior. I mean, certainly from my point of view, I moved from not doing this when we were kind of a normal company or in the normal world to doing this, which is basically I now do daily stand-ups with the two heads of marketing and the sales team. And the way I've done it is we try and keep it really short. Like, the idea is it's 15 to 20 minutes, but actually it's normally about half an hour. But I really kind of try and, so if no one's got anything to say, that's it, we're done. Like, not going to just sit around unless people want to have a chat about non-work things, which is kind of actually what happened last night. We did our sales meeting, and then we kind of just started riffing about the differences between the lockdown in America and the UK, and that was fine because it was more of a social thing. So on top of my daily stand-ups, I do a weekly longer session, which we were doing before anyway. So with the sales, we go through the numbers every week. It used to be every 2 weeks. Now we go through every week, and everyone has to update where they are in the sales process and the pipeline. And then with the heads of marketing, we do a weekly kind of longer form discussion. And that seems to be working. But I do sometimes, I was talking to a friend of mine who works for, I won't say where he works for a very, 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 very large technology company. And he said that basically he's spending so much of his time now on Zoom, or not, they don't use Zoom, WebEx, I think. And a lot of that is him managing upwards to his kind of managers who are normally traveling. They're not traveling. He said suddenly they want to be on WebEx calls the whole time. He said, I'm literally exhausted. I spend 6 hours a day sat in front of a camera talking to colleagues. Weeks ago, so maybe those guys have.
Well, my advice for them would be lean into the asynchronous video. So, like, what we do is, like, for example, the update I gave the company last week was a Loom video. It wasn't an all hands. It wasn't a live thing. So I just, put some slides together, recorded the video, and just posted it into Slack, into the main channel, so people could see it and they could watch it in their own time. For your friends, I would highly recommend, like, if his bosses will allow it. I mean, they might just be like just bored and that's why they want it. But if they could give him that freedom to just say, you know what, when I'm out on my walk, I will give an audio like update, or even just a video, whatever it might be, and just post it like somewhere where they can see it in whatever communication channel they use, even the email, whatever. Then you wouldn't have to give the same update to 10 different people, which I imagine there's a high degree of repetition between those calls, because, hey, he's only got so much time in the day, and if he's spending half of it on a call telling people what he's doing, then the other half he's only doing so much. So I think we probably, the ones that haven't kind of fallen into a pattern where it's like, I mean, I am still on a lot more Zoom calls than I ever have been before. I mean, actually, I'd say that like I'm not. I mean, the rest of my day after this is solid calls for 4
You've got about an hour,
hours.
because I was trying to book a meeting with you, and you've got about half an hour off or
It's
something.
not really possible. Yeah. It's and even one of them is like, it goes all the way through. So, and this is on Zoom as well. So I'm actually spending the entire day on Zoom. But this is kind of unusual. And those genuinely all need to be live calls, because they're with, kind of, I won't go into what the calls are about, but they're people, external calls.
Yeah, you're not you're not updating Teams. You're actually having a meeting.
No.
So I think it's interesting what you said about the difference between synchronous and asynchronous communication, because that to me feels there's two things around that. One, there's that you remove that kind of immediacy of like, oh my God, it's Friday. I've got 6 hours of Zoom calls to do. It's like, okay, well, I can kind of manage my time a little bit more. But also I think there's a difference between synchronous and asynchronous in that, how do I put it? The degree of thought that might go into that communication. So if it's something that's completely synchronous, like a live Zoom meeting, you can't, obviously you put a bit of thought in before you have the meeting, but you're talking as you think. You have an idea, you say it, people respond, that kind of thing. Whereas a Loom video, for example, which someone could look at later, you probably have a little bit more of a thought about what you're going to say. You might have a couple of goes at it. If you screw it up the first time, you might go, I'm going to go back and say it. You might have some notes. So there's almost like a relationship between that sort of synchronicity and asynchronicity, but also the degree of thought and preparedness that goes into it, which also might then save some time as well. Because if you're kind of going, right, I've got a finite piece of time. I'm going to do a video for 5 minutes. I know what I want to say. I'm not going to waffle. I'm not going to meander around. I'm just going to go, pow, pow. These are the key things. Great. People have got that. Move on type thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also eliminates that need for people on the call who don't really need to be on the call. There's quite often that sort of ghost in the background who's like there, but no one really knows why. And they probably don't even really know why either. And again, I think you're right. There's a good point actually about, when you're doing a Loom, you do, even if it's just for 2 minutes before, you are thinking, what am I going to say? And also, if it's crap, you can just stop it and do it again. And quite often you do use, like, it defaults to showing your screen and you as a small picture rather than just you as a big, hey, it's my face, hello. And so with that, you quite often will have some sort of visual aid or cue. Could be some notes, could be slides. Quite often do slides, but if it, it could just even be like whatever, like could just be some tabs. And even actually, that's kind of a quick tip, is if you want to like think of all of the things you want to talk about, you could just have reference tabs of websites or notes or whatever, just click along your browser and go, oh yeah, what's the next? It's almost like having a slide deck that you don't actually have to make. So say like, oh, here are the customers I spoke to this week. If you can't remember all the names of them, just put their websites in a row and go, oh yeah, it was them and them and them, and we did that. And it kind of makes it a bit more visual, a bit more interesting, but might like land, there's some interesting statistics that now that we found, and we're doing a lot of work and research about how people like to communicate at work, because that's kind of where we want to push ScreenCloud towards, is really trying to solve this workforce communication problem. And it said that now of the current generation in the workforce, like complete generation, 75% say they're more likely to watch a video than they are to read a long piece of text. So the next time someone writes a big, long, old email, you might think, you know what, if I could have turned this into a few slides on Google Slides or PowerPoint and made a quick Loom video and sent that out, people might actually watch it. And guess what? If they watch it, they might actually learn something. And you know what? If they've actually learned something, they might not have loads of meetings about it.
Well, I also think there's also a relationship between like this, how limited and how scarce a resource is in terms of how much you can use it. So, for example, email, as you said, like or Slack, with Slack you can just write whatever comes into your head, and okay, it's short form, so it's good, it's bite size and all that. With an email, again, I could write you an 800-word email if I wanted, and because it's email, I know that you probably feel obliged to open it at least. You might skim through it, but there's a sense of like there's no cap on what I can send you. Whereas with something like what we've been talking about, ScreenCloud TV, for example, if you were to create the marketing channel within ScreenCloud TV, you would have a finite amount of real estate effectively, because you couldn't just go, I'm just going to think of anything that I'm actually working on and I'm just going to plug away and then I'm going to stick that in the marketing channel, because no one's going to read that. It's too long form. But actually what it has two effects. One, it means that people think a little bit more about what they're actually putting into that communication, because they know they've only got a limited amount of real estate. And two, the person receiving it thinks this has been sort of curated to an extent that it's going to be something that I should look at, because someone's this isn't just someone's stream of consciousness, which Slack often is. I'm not saying that's completely what it is, but
it can be.
It can be, yeah, a little bit. Especially if you get into you go into Slack and you have that kind of Slack. For me, it's a bit like when we were talking about emails in a previous podcast. It gives me that little bit of anxiety. It was like, okay, do I scroll through every single channel that I'm subscribed to or that I'm in, every single room that I'm in, to make sure I haven't missed anything? Or should I only look at stuff where someone's atted me? Or should I do a little bit of both? Because if I do, literally, I could just sit there all day and just be like, in a factory on a production line, sifting through messages, working out which ones I should respond to. And that's a waste of my time, really. But at the same time, if you don't do that, there's that sort of thing where someone goes, "Did you say such and such in the Slack room?" And you go, "Shit, no, I missed that. Hang on, let me."
Well, yeah. There's definitely a problem with that. That's what we're sort of trying to be solving a bit with Signal, for sure. I think also it's about, like, I do it in bursts. I can actually get through quite a lot of Slack channels pretty fast. I always prioritize anyone who's actually mentioned me, because if you've tagged me or added me, it means you actually really want me to see something. So that seems like a natural priority.
Yeah.
Where I absolutely push back like a lot is, and we kind of did it this morning, but it actually makes sense this morning, is when people create groups of just individuals where every message is the equivalent of getting like a private message. I just say that no, it's either a channel or it's one-on-one. If it's a group, this is fine for this morning because it's just us three just figuring out the Zoom links for the call. Like, that actually is appropriate. But if it starts to become a thing, once you've got 8 messages, that's like having 8 text messages. That's just absurd. Another thing I've been doing with Slack is where it gets into a thread of like conversation, people aren't quite getting it right, jump to call. Like, I've had this a few times in the last weeks, especially when it's been a bit stressful and people have been working kind of long hours, and we were sick, I was sick, and probably wasn't being at my clearest with my communication. I was kind of, got into quite a lot of long threads, and I could just see that people weren't quite understanding it. I said, just team, let's just quickly go on a call. It's just like whacking a Zoom link, and then we could sort it out fast in like 5 minutes, just chatting through. So
yeah,
there's loads of different things. There was something I was going to say just about your point, because I think you were making a very good point about the curated thing before. So right. I'll tell you when you do good stuff and when you do bad. David, that was shit. But the point about curation, I was kind of going to add to that I think when something goes up on a screen, or you make a video that you post that people are going to just see, and you're the only person in that video, like, you're making your point, there's a degree of performance to it, a small degree of performance, or it's public. And I generally find that if anyone is ever, like, think of it in just normal day-to-day life, like, let's say like let's say it's like a family gathering, like it could be a wedding or a birthday or something, and someone says, like, it's your dad's birthday, so say a few words for your dad, like toast your dad kind of thing. You'll get that slight like performance anxiety, a slight bit, of going, oh, I've got to say something, even if it's just to your own family who you spend all your time with anyway. But there's still a bit, I'm standing up, ding, ding, ding. All right, everyone, just going to say happy birthday, or this kind of thing. And happy birthday, Dad, because it is his birthday next week. That's why I was thinking about it. And he's one of our few listeners. He's a loyal
birthday,
listener.
Peter.
I think
is your mum's birthday like 2 days later or something? Or
no, she's in February. But there's loads of birthdays around April. It's Mila's birthday soon, isn't it?
Mila's birthday in May. Actually, I think my dad's birthday is very close to your dad's birthday. I know there's
some kind of April bunching going on.
Yeah, my dad's a 26th.
All very strong-headed individuals.
Yeah.
Dad's 24th. I think Adam's. Anyway, sorry, we're talking about people that they don't know. Actually, there might be a few listeners. We're talking about you guys. Look, but anyway, so that moment you sort of go, all right, I'm going to give a quick toast. You just mentally check off, like, what am I going to say? And there is a degree of performance to it. You want it to be good. You want it to be clear. You want it to be entertaining, and like, you don't really get that in a meeting scenario, really. And so I think it's just, if we could move more towards asynchronous with the ability to comment and stuff, it also saves a shitload of time, right? Like, I've had numerous things as we've grown in the last year where people go, oh, we should really address, I'll give you an example of one that keeps getting brought up, because we haven't really cracked it yet properly, is we should really improve our onboarding process for new customers. And I'm like, ding, yeah, we definitely should. Here's a Loom video I made over 1 year ago about exactly that, giving all of my thoughts about what I think a good onboarding experience should be. Not designing it, but just giving my kind of general opinions. And these are to people who've now joined the team subsequently. And instead of having an hour-long chat, I can show a really well thought through video where I genuinely spent time going, what are all the elements of onboarding that I think are valid? So some of it is now a bit dated and not as relevant, but I can give that to someone and go, watch that. It's a longer one. It's like 20 minutes, but it's got like slides and stuff in it. So watch that and you'll know everything I think about onboarding.
Actually, that's another good point as well, because actually in this kind of massive noise, all well-meaning, let's say, I mean, none of it's sort of malicious, but how do you, one of the challenges is how do you prioritize content? I mean, I've had the same thing. So I was talking to, in the sales team, we were saying, what would be really good if we had a collateral matrix, all the collateral we've got, organized by vertical, organized by feature. And, so if someone's coming in and they want to talk about SSO, for example, you click on this, you can see, SSO, you wouldn't have a video. Let's say dashboards. You
might have a little guide or something.
Yeah. So you might see a video about dashboards, and then afterwards you might have a series of articles, maybe a white paper, maybe an opinion piece or whatever that you can send in an email. But it's all there, and it's really easy. And we make sure that there's a minimum bar of quality content going out to customers based on what they're looking for. And Beth's going, yeah, I've got that. I did it. I'll send you the link. And there is this problem of like, how do you prioritize? How do you sort of say, okay, we're all producing lots and lots of content, and some of it's going to be more important and have a longer shelf life than others. So me doing a Loom video once a week saying, here's my founders update. This is what I've been up to this week, has a shelf life of 3 days or a week. Yeah. You doing a video about, here's my thinking about onboarding, has a shelf life of 2 years, let's say, or
until we crack onboarding, until we actually do it well.
But
might be forever.
As far as Slack's concerned, or Zoom's or Loom's concerned, or whatever, they have equal billing. They have an equal. In fact, whatever's more recent has the higher priority in some way. So I think there's that challenge as well. As like, how do you make sense? I mean, I'm kind of setting this up for, I guess, what ScreenCloud's trying to do. But this is one of the things that we've seen as a challenge. We've got all this technology here to allow people to communicate across a number of different channels. It could be chat, it could be messaging, it could be video, it could be live video conferencing, collaboration tools. But what we haven't got necessarily is a means of saying, how do we make sure that the most important bits of those informations surfaces to the top, and then people make sense of it. So I've noticed, for example, with you in Slack, when you really, really want people to look at something, you're at here, the channel, and then you'll go, really, really important. Everyone has to read this, or everyone has to watch this kind of thing. But that's as much as you can do. And then you still got to hope that people don't ignore it. Yeah. And it's, but I think, again, this is one of the challenges that we're getting, because the technology is so good, or is so, sort of omnipresent, that actually cutting through that and saying, well, this stuff is more important than this stuff you definitely have to look at, this stuff, you probably find this interesting, and this stuff, well, if you've got time, I think is a big challenge as well.
Well, that's what I mean. So that is literally what we're really leaning in on Signal, and we actually showed the product that we've built over the last 6 weeks. We actually made a lot of progress on that. We've been building it on top of Microsoft Teams and on top of Slack, and it's a way of doing exactly what you just said, which is highlighting key things and delivering it in a more visually appealing way, or like on desktop or on TV screen or on phone. And we showed it to the Microsoft product team that we were talking to, and they really liked it. They were like, "This is actually quite a big thing that they're thinking about." So it's definitely been on their radar. And Microsoft Teams usage has exploded in this time. As has Slack's, but I think Microsoft is really kind of it's kicking off now, and they've got a good they've got a Zoom, alternative in there as well, which is all bundled. So I'm very bullish on what Microsoft are doing, because they're just bundling so much good stuff into one thing. But by bundling all of that stuff in, you do create this sort of cacophony of noise potentially. I think search is going to play a huge part of it. I think also it's about consistency. It's about kind of like, people have to think, if I was to find this, where would I go looking for it? And if I go looking there, will I actually find it? You see what I mean? So you're kind of like creating breadcrumb trails for, well, if I was looking for a video that Mark had done, I think he would have posted it here, or it would be linked to on this Notion page, which we use for our intranet. And Notion is being used very heavily in the company now. I'm really genuinely surprised about that. Like, getting our intranet to get moving at all was painful and really not happening. And then we switched to Notion, and then everyone just went for it. And like, I was looking at kind of, we're doing all sorts of things inside of Notion. In fact, like that matrix you were talking about, content, that should totally live in Notion, because actually we've got a really good system in there for logging all of the devices, which we have to do as part of our security system. And it actually is a really good kind of matrix of devices. What everyone's devices all tagged to person, what operating system, when they got it. And I was like, oh, this is good. So yeah, it's about kind of, now I would now assume something like that you said would now live in Notion. I was like, oh, that will be the sales marketing section of Notion, and that will just tell you the matrix of all the content, I would have thought. It's probably a Google Sheet, because it probably predates that, but that's where it should probably live.
It is at the moment a Google Sheet, but it makes sense.
But that's normal. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of. Really, it's an interesting time to experiment with just getting this right and trying new things, and maybe doing a bit of meeting resistance and going, what, actually don't do, or maybe limit the people on the meeting, but get them to make that little follow-up video or little recording at the end that just summarizes it for everyone else, because they don't always need to know the whole workings out of what happened or the brainstorming. You just kind of want to know what was agreed. So I trust you gave it proper due diligence and thought, but I don't really need to hear you kind of finding your path. It's not necessary for me.
I don't know if you heard the 20-minute VC with David Heinemeier Hansen. I don't know if you listened to that this week.
This is going to be sound on a podcast. I just haven't been listening to podcasts, because I'm not out commuting, so I just know I haven't listened to anything.
Yeah, no, I mean it's quite interesting. I was we're quite different to them, but I always like listening to them, because I think I like the way he's so provocative. But
he very much attacked Zoom. I thought that was a little unfair, but yeah.
Well, what he was saying is, which I think is quite interesting, he said, like, you should only because obviously these guys have been doing remote forever, and he was talking a little bit about some of the things that they do to kind of get over some of the things. I mean, less about using technology, but more about how things are set up. But they were saying that he was saying that really you should only have a meeting if you should do most of your kind of deliberation via writing. And then you should only have a meeting really to get people on the same page, which is interesting, because you mentioned earlier about actually, if you're in Slack and you're having a conversation and it's going a little bit like, then the good thing to do is just get everyone onto a call quickly and just go, right, let's just get back on, let's just make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yep.
So, and actually, so he was saying that they try and avoid having meetings for the sake of meetings. And they do most of their kind of discussions via the written word. And then they just have the meeting are really just if there are more than a few people that aren't on the same page and clearly they can't get, then that's when it works. But I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think we probably will be increasingly more aware of, as you said, not just defaulting to let's do a meeting, let's get on a Zoom call or whatever. Because it is, I mean, with my day, I'm pleased that I'm doing these daily stand-ups, because I think they're really working, but I also want to make sure that I'm not doing it because I feel that I need to, that's my way of adding value. It's only worth it if I'm adding value. If I'm just sort of there going, right, tell me what you guys are up to kind of thing, then I'm spending a day a week effectively of their time almost getting them to to tell me what they're up to, kind of thing. So I'm constantly aware of that. Like, I don't want to meddle, as you were saying. I don't want to just kind of go in and say, I'm going to just have a look at what you're doing, and I'm going to sort of prod you and sort of be on your case. Obviously, you still want something, but I also want to.
I mean,
kind of
I'm
feel
interested about that. I'm not doing daily stand-ups. I'm doing more like weekly ones. But so why? I'm interested. Like, why daily? I find it's almost there's.
We never not have anything to say. I think it's partly for me. I think things have moved quicker since we've been doing it, and the fact that we keep it very short means that we don't need to get into that whole. There's no agenda particularly. It's like normally there's one or two things that have come up that we want to talk about. So, I mean. What was it? Yes, I'm trying to think with marketing yesterday. So with marketing, we're doing an outbound campaign to the health sector. So just a quick update on where that was going, but also, have we got the right collateral to go with that? And also planning, as I talked to you yesterday about this kind of workforce communications, how we're going to articulate that. So it's just like really, really short, brief questions. We're all okay. We're all on board. We're all sort of still working to the same thing. Yeah. Okay. See you tomorrow. And it has worked for me. I think it works better than the kind of. So when we were with sales before, we were doing it every 2 weeks, and it was like, oh,
it's probably a bit too big. Yeah.
But then you feel like thing of like, I mean, it's a little bit with our. I think you can only do it with a few people as well. I think if you had a lot of people, it gets harder. Yeah. So the marketing ones are great because there's just 3 of us. Sales a bit more cumbersome because there's a few more of us, but again, there's not a lot to discuss. I think the danger is if you don't talk that regularly, every time you get together, it's like, okay, I'm going to offload everything I've been thinking and doing.
Yeah, it's an amorphous mass. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, as you say, you've got people sitting there for sort of half an hour going, well, I've got nothing to add to this because this is. I know it's marketing.
Not my bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of worked. And I think of the other thing as well, because. We are a distributed company, and in the sales team, it's split between LA and London. In the marketing team, Jürgen's in LA, Beth's in London. So I think, again, it's kind of, it's quite useful to check in, especially when people are working from home as well. I mean,
Yeah. It probably helps a lot with just the sort of that detachment anxiety. Just to kind of it's just a touch point, isn't it? And I think it's an interesting idea. I haven't done it. I maybe should think about it. I'm not sure. God, it's like you just another call in.
Well, it's a bit of a kind of like, oh God. But the redeeming thing is like we try, unless there's a reason to, keep it really, really short, and then it's I don't know. Yeah, for me, it's kind of worked quite well. I find it better than going onto Slack and trying to scroll through everything, all the threads on marketing, all the threads on sales. And I'm saying that I don't look at those, but quite often those are more kind of, can someone help me with this, or can someone help me with that? Whereas with the stand-ups, they're like, what is it? What one thing's happened today, or 2 things happened today, or any questions? And someone might say, "Oh, I've got this one client, and they're saying that that they want to." I don't know. Like yesterday, was a client that they've started a trial with us, but now they're going to go with a trial with someone else, and just a really quick, okay, I think you should do this, or what was their reaction to this, or and we came up with an idea of how we might. Change the conversation that we're having when we're onboarding someone onto a trial, for example. Yeah. So it's just little things like that. And I suppose it's the equivalent of what you might have if you were in the office. It's like a chat over a coffee with Sam or something.
Yeah.
Those things are kind of fleeting, unscheduled, no agenda. But
yeah, I think I kind of naturally did it because I was kind of just in and around it a bit more. So it's maybe something I need to sort of think about how I reintroduce that touch point back in. Because it's interesting.
But obviously, the key thing you don't want to do is then it to turn into a kind of daily,
a daily grind,
or people feeling, oh my God, I've got to report up to David and he's going to give me a hard, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll have a look at that, and then yeah, I think we've probably covered. I don't know if that was helpful. There's probably some quite good little nuggets in there. I think the asynchronous stuff, especially, is trying to reduce that meeting load, that Zoom load.
I think, yeah, I think people will need to start. I think it's that combination of asynchronicity, if that's a word, and curation, for want of a better word.
And then using live for what live is best for.
Yeah.
That live experience can be quite powerful, can be good for Q&A and for things like that. And you do need it, especially, but keep it for what it's genuinely good for. And if you find you're sat there like just listening for half an hour, then you've done it wrong. What's quite interesting though still about video, right, is I don't know how many people have joined us now from, let's say, probably really less of a startup background, or still a bit of it, but maybe not quite, are still petrified of making videos. Like it's for me, it's just like, just turn the thing on, click go, like do it. Oh, like, hair's still a bit wet, like, kind of, I'll shave it off, fuck it, like just go. Like, like, I mean, obviously I've done hundreds of them. I'm completely comfortable. I don't really care. But most people still really can't handle either seeing or hearing their own voice. And that is still a blocker. That said, I have usually be a bit of a meanie here, but I have usually just forced people through to do it. And once you've done it a couple of times, you kind of just chill and you do it. But I like it. There is still something strange, even though you're in total control. If it goes horribly wrong, you just don't post it. Like it's not like you're kind of going on national television live. Hello nation. It's still up to you whether you post it or not. But like, just chill and just do it. Like, just press the button, go. But people really struggle with that. So I think there'll be loads of people listening to this. Well, there won't be probably, but those that are listening to this will probably go, oh yeah, that sounds great. Oh, but I don't want to make videos. Just do it. Just do it. It's really not a big deal. I mean, obviously the kind of more social media savvy generation don't seem to have as big a problem with it. That said, I still think it's still a handful that are really comfortable, and they seem to overshare. But just don't worry about it. You don't have to listen back to your own videos if you don't want to.
Yeah,
you don't ever have to really listen to your own voice.
And think about the shelf life. They might only have a week's shelf life, and then it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone.
Cool.
All right. We'll leave it there, and I'll go on to my next Zoom call.
Yeah, the day of Zoom. I think I'm on a call with you in about 3 hours or 2 hours or something with.
Yeah. There you go. Back to back. I will try and hit the schedule. This will be a marathon run. Through to the end of the day. Whew.
Well, good luck with yours, and
good luck with your stand up. Say hi to everyone.
I will do. All right.